Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite, for our now third Thursday morning conversation. And this time we're going all the way to Hong Kong to talk to a good friend of ours and Via Satellite's, Tom Choi, who's currently the executive chairman of the Airspace Internet Exchange and also former CEO of ABS and a former winner of our Satellite Executive of the Year. So good evening, Tom. How are you?
Hey, Mark. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. How is life under lockdown in Hong Kong? What's the sort of feeling there? How's it all going?
Well, Hong Kong's quite safe for the moment. Yesterday, they recorded no new cases of the coronavirus. Uh, Hong Kong's gone through this kind of a pandemic before during the SARS crisis last decade. A lot of people were infected. A lot of people died in Hong Kong. So the whole population has let's say, an ancestral memory and fear about what could happen if things like this go out of control. So when the news spread that there's human to human spreading, everybody in Hong Kong scrambled for masks,
Yeah.
and they protected themselves. While they protected themselves, they also protected others, because if you learn about this virus, you find out that the level of the viral load that you get when you're first exposed determines how bad of a disease that you get. So if you just so happen to catch one droplet of somebody's sneeze, maybe couple meters down, you're going to have a much better outcome than if you were completely exposed talking to somebody for 1 hour, somebody who had the disease. Um, so by using masks, and I'm quite surprised that other countries, took a long time to recommend wearing of masks. Uh, but I would highly recommend anybody watching this video, please wear a mask, because even if it's just the cotton mask that you made out of your wet T-shirt or whatever, uh, whatever that's available, just wear it, because if you reduce the exposure level of the virus, you'll have a much better outcome. So because people in Hong Kong are following that regimen, and because of all the testing that's going on here, as well as the isolation that they've enforced, it's actually one of the safest places in the world to be at this moment. So I'm actually quite feeling fortunate for me and my family.
Good to hear. And talk about. I mean, we asked Steve Collar last week what the Collar family was binge watching and what music they were listening to. What's been any recommendations from the Choi family in terms of any sort of movies, dramas that you particularly liked recently?
Well, I think the Choi family is quite unique and individualistic. So my daughter watches a whole bunch of different stuff. She doesn't tell me what she does or watches. My son is also following different interests. My wife likes watching Korean dramas. Uh, I actually like. I've been following deeply the developments of Westworld. It's on its
Oh,
third season. It's quite interesting. Looking at what could potentially happen with AI and machines taking over. So it's a quite a good of an escape.
so that's one of your favorites then, Westworld. I've never
Yeah.
seen that one. And
Oh, you should watch it online. It's available, HBO
yeah,
online.
I've heard of it. I mean, I think we have Sky here in the UK, and I think it may be on a box set on our system, but I haven't actually seen that. Well, that's good to know. Tell us about some of your. I mean, we see regular interviews with you and regular commentary on various things, all things satellite. What does Tom Choi, when he's not trying to come up with amazing new satellite companies and initiatives, what do you like to do sort of outside of work? Where are sort of your passions and interests?
Well, I'm not I'm not sure if you could tell, but when I was a kid, I was always creating. I love making things.
Yeah.
So I was an avid artist. I did a lot of artwork when I was a kid. I did everything from pencils, crayons, to gouache, acrylic, oil, even airbrushing. And then I moved on to making poetry after I got bored with art. I must have written like, I don't know, 500 poems. I have books of poetry, which I never published. And then I got into music for a bit, for about a year or two. I made some music with some musicians when I was younger. Now I'm sort of into the outdoors. I like hiking a lot. Hong Kong has many different hiking paths. So just 5 minutes outside the house, you can go on a pretty rigorous hike. So I do that quite often. And these days, I'm into leather working. So I have a bunch of tools, bunch of leather, and I make wallets, bags, give it as gifts to friends, and just to amuse myself.
Wow.
So I'm always trying to either keep my mind or my hands busy. I don't want to get
And
in trouble.
what I want to go back to the music bit a little bit because I'm a big music fan myself. So were you in a band, and what was the name of that band?
No. I was never in a band. Well, when I was in
What instrument?
junior high school, I was a percussionist for my well, junior high school and high school, but I never felt that I had the talent to take it to the next level. So I just decided to focus on my academics instead.
Okay.
But
And just
I did play the drums a bit.
okay. And what sort of music do you like to listen to? I mean, we found out last week that Steve was listening to a bit of Dua Lipa at the moment. I think through a recommendation of his daughter. So I'm intrigued to hear what you might be listening to as well.
Wow. Since I played music or performed concerts when I was a kid, so I got my background in like classical music. So I
Yeah.
love classical music from the Baroque era, the other eras that came afterwards. I love live jazz, uh, all the uh, all the innovations and all the variations that people are doing when they perform jazz. You go to a jazz concert, it's never going to sound the same as what they did before. I love that creativity, spontaneity of jazz music. Uh, Blues, and anything that's live. So I really enjoy going to New York and catching a live show.
Okay.
It's pretty moving. So I'm into all genres. Anything good, I like listening to it.
And what was the last show you went to in New York?
The last show, I think it was a performance for my kids. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was. It was a bunch of little elementary students running around, complaining about their bossy, teacher. I can't remember, but probably like Les Miserables is probably my favorite.
Okay.
So like
Okay.
Phantom of the Opera is another one. I think one of my favorite opera is like Marriage of Figaro. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So
And just finally on the whole music thing, what was your sort of maybe sort of like favorite rock concert or pop concert or contemporary artist? Anyone you look back on and think, yeah, that was
well,
pretty
believe it
good.
or not, when I was a kid, I used to really love Depeche Mode. So I
Really?
went to like a half a dozen concerts of Depeche Mode. And when you're like 19 years old and it's that kind of music, yeah, I think that was pretty interesting.
I was definitely more sort of in my teens, I guess more sort of classic rock. So I think the first concert I ever went to was Bryan Adams at Wembley Arena when I was, I think, 17. And then I sort of followed it up with a lot of similar, Bon Jovi, U2, Bruce Springsteen, so very sort of classic rock. And as I've got older, I probably sort of like more sort of up and coming bands now, so things that probably most people haven't heard of. So I've sort of gone from sort of more sort of mainstream rock to some more sort of alternative electronic acousticy type stuff. So I love discovering new bands and new artists that perhaps a lot of people haven't heard of. So music is a big passion. I've been to lots of concerts myself, so it's a really cool thing. let's talk a little bit. We started a conversation about COVID and what was happening in Hong Kong. What are your sort of, when you look at how we do business going forward? I mean, you're an entrepreneur. We know that you like to create, you like to put together businesses. How do you see what's happening now change the way we do business, not just in the satellite sector, but overall going forward? Yeah.
To answer your question, I think this virus situation is it's going to be with us for a while. Uh, if you see what's happened during the bubonic plague, the Black Death that happened between the I think the 14th and the 16th century, there are many different waves of infections. And also, the last time we had a global pandemic of this scale, the 1918 Spanish flu, there were multiple waves. It lasted over 2 years. So I'm really hoping that we could find some kind of a cure or some form of vaccines. But if that's not found, we're going to be in a serious situation where people are not going to be able to trust the people that they meet. They're not going to be able to trust the travel. I think international travel is probably out of the question for several months, if not into 2021. So the current businesses that are depending upon any of those industries, like the oil and gas industries, the maritime, I would say specifically the cruise industry, the airline industries, or any industries that are supporting those industries are going to be in serious trouble, because so many people are not traveling. The oil producers are unable to actually even dispose of the oil that's coming out of the ground. So I recently talked to somebody who's an expert in this industry. They said that the companies that own oil tankers, their share prices are skyrocketing right now because they actually happen to have an area where inside their tankers where they can actually store the oil. So I think this is going to be not over within 1 or 2 months time frame. So businesses need to hunker down. They need to uh, definitely justify their expenses. Uh, the business model where you have this assumption that your customers are going to keep paying their bills may be questioned. So I'm hoping it's not going to be that kind of a scary type of environment, but I do fear that we need to be more prepared than where we were before. I think I was quite surprised to see so many politicians, government officials play down this disease and the virus. I I didn't obviously understand that it was this bad, but because people prioritized, I would say, the economy, stock prices, or getting tourist dollars more, uh, rather than the health of their population, we're getting the outcome that we're seeing in Europe as well as North America. And I really also am extremely concerned about what's happening in India, emerging markets like Africa, where there is just no medical facilities available for 1 billion people. So
Yeah.
um, I think we need to completely have let's say, a mentality where we have to think, what could the worst scenario be, and we have to make sure that we can survive through that kind of crisis. Um, but that being said, I think the satellite industry, the customers that are using the satellites for mission critical communications, satellite backbone, enterprise networking, let's say point of sale transactions, broadcast video, DTH, cellular backhaul. All those services are going to stay on, because without that, I think society could break down. But in terms of new projects where people are thinking about doing a 500 site VSAT installation, where they have to, roll out trucks and crews and cranes to install equipment, I think all those projects are going to be pushed to the right. They're going to be pushed out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year. So I think for my recommendation for satellite operators is, make sure that the revenue that you have be as defensive as possible, and expect a significant minority of your customers are not going to be able to pay. So I would be extremely careful about CapEx budgets as well as OpEx. But still, the satellite communications industry is overall, except for those sectors that I mentioned, are going to be doing much better than the automobile industry, for example, or the car rental business or the hotel business. So I think we're better off. And the other thing that I think, moving a year or two beyond this crisis, I think we should look forward to potentially getting a lot of business, because the people who are living in large cities, large urban centers, they realize living in those places is actually quite hazardous to their health. If there's another pandemic that strikes, does it make sense for people to be living 50 floors beneath other families above you? I I, I recently heard that outerlying areas outside of New York City, like 1 to 2 hours away, the vacation home prices have increased by a factor of 300%, because people are so desperate to leave New York City. But in those areas, there's no broadband. Internet is, very slow or non-existent. So I think there's going to be a mass migration, a rethink of the population. People are going to move out from the large cities. They're going to go to suburban areas, rural areas. They're going to push themselves out. And people are also finding out where they have access to broadband. Working from home, doing video calls is actually quite productive. So there's going to be a lot of demand for communications networks, wireless networks, satellite networks. So I think that's a net positive for our industry. And obviously the oil sector will come back, airlines will come back, and people will start traveling on cruise ships again, but probably not in the scale that they were at before. And my last observation that I would make is I think we have to probably think about, as these customers become much more distributed, not concentrating themselves into clusters of population, but as the population density reduces, as people spread, we probably have to figure out how to build our technology and our services that is more easily accessible by the individual user, a consumer.
Yeah.
So instead of rolling out a big VSAT network, 3-meter dish, and putting that on the bottom of a tower and hoping to connect 500 homes, maybe we have to figure out how to make a VSAT that a consumer could just receive by DHL, open it up himself, and install to receive broadband from satellites. Because maybe that guy doesn't want a satellite installer to show up to his house, cough and spread viruses and endanger his family. So I think if we could figure out ways, and companies that are able to do that, I think will be more successful than the companies who rely upon an infrastructure of human beings to deliver a service.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned at the start of that answer about new projects, and you yourself have some, some very ambitious projects for this sector. Do you think what will be sort of the direct impact, do you think, on some of the work that you're doing right now?
Well, fortunately for us, we the past, I'm not sure if it's by luck or by design, but let's say it's by luck. We focused a lot of effort on trying to get governmental support for some of the technologies that we're developing, especially Curvelux. It's a technology that's designed to connect rural populations. So it's and those populations are not necessarily having the highest level of income. So we just 3 weeks ago, in the middle of this crisis, signed a major R&D funding project. We received over $10 million to develop the next generation of Curvelux. We're moving from analog to digital. We're going from only operating in the 5 gigahertz unlicensed band to a very wide frequency software-defined radio beamforming, as well as building very low-cost user terminals that could be easily installed in consumers' homes. We have not announced it publicly, but I'm happy to tell you that Curvelux is in great shape. It's a European country that actually agreed to sponsor our development, so we're going to be moving our R&D into this country, and you should see a press release either later this week or early next week about that. On the Saturn front, as you know, we have an endeavor to build low-cost geo satellites. And again, we can't announce anything publicly, but there's a very, very strong interest in our product. We're able to build a low-cost geo satellite for 1 million a gigabit. We could build bent pipe wide beam satellites for countries at a fraction of the cost of what was available, and most importantly, we could build it in a shorter amount of time. So there's strong interest, and without giving up any more information than I should, I would say before June there should be a major press release on that front. So we feel very good about both businesses that we're working on. And then I could also give you a hint that I see Curvelux and Saturn kind of coming together. We have this amazing wireless broadband radio, as well as low-cost user terminals and low-cost satellites. I think I'm working on a project which I don't want to discuss. I may have hinted it to you before. It's going to be a non-geosynchronous project which combines the best features of Curvelux and Saturn to offer a new kind of service that other people have not envisioned before. So it's not a copycat of OneWeb or Starlink. It's not a copy of other things that people have done before. But I believe, right now, when we have a lot of time on our hands to plan, that's what we're doing. We're doing a lot of surveys. We're doing the design work. And we're talking to governments to get support. So we think we're going to get there.
And when you look at the work that you've done, and you're looking back at being the CEO of ABS and what you're doing now, and even the things you did pre-ABS, where do you see yourself at now in this industry? Because you have you are one of the most high-profile figures in this industry. I think that's sort of fair to say, and you've worked for a number of different companies, and one of the more entrepreneurial spirits within this industry. Is this even within the great things that you've done, one of the more exciting periods in your career?
Well, certainly. What we're doing now is very, very rewarding and interesting, because for the first time I'm liberated. As you know, I'm not working with financial investors. All the money that's gone into this project, into Airspace, Curvelux, Saturn, has been funded by either customer contracts, government R&D support, or money that me and my partners put into the business. So we can prioritize what we want to do based upon the things that we find interesting. And what I find interesting now especially now that the world is going through this crisis, I think I'm having this big realization, you know, and maybe other people are having this as well. The important thing is that, you know, everybody has dreams and big plans and big ambitions. But what does that mean if you're frail of health and you don't have family? So, or you become sick and everything, just all those things that you thought were important become very meaningless. And so I think, at least I feel this way, that I feel have a lot more appreciation about what I have now without, especially, you know, my family, the fact that I'm still able to get around, you know, I still have my health. I think we need to be more content potentially with what we already have,
Yeah.
and not sacrifice the here and now for something in the future. You know, because of the fact that I've been stuck in Hong Kong with my family, I'm really able to talk to my wife a lot more. I'm having daily walks with her. I'm seeing my kids. My kids are back from school, and I appreciate my family a lot more than I did before. So, and I think 20 years since I first met my wife has come and gone so fast, and I really realized, hey, I should have slowed things down. I should have spent the time that I'm doing now. If I would have just slowed it down 10%, I would have gotten back 2 years with my family. So I think, at least for me, appreciating what I have and not being so ambitious, not so greedy for something big in the future is something that I learned to realize. And the second thing is, I realized that, as I mentioned, since I'm not working for financial masters, I'm able to do things that I want to do, which I find important. So the technologies and the services that we're developing, I actually want to really help people. I mean, of course, many people say this, right? But I we have to put food on the table. But if we're able to utilize our capabilities and talents to affect change on those who have a lesser capability, lesser resources than us, then I think maybe that's something that's taking a lot more priority for me, that I see, that I'm not looking to, you know, become the next billionaire. I'm not looking to win another any more awards. I just want to make sure that whatever I'm working on is going to have a meaningful difference in some impoverished people who don't have connectivity. I really want to make that real. So, so as we see, you know, one irresponsible person who are not careful could spread this virus to 1,000 people, and those 1,000 people could spread it to another 6,000 and 60,000. So we have to take care of each other. So I'm hoping that I could come out of this crisis as maybe a kinder and a more compassionate person that's thinking about other people. And I hope this crisis is also having a similar impact to other people. So hopefully maybe we just wake up from this crisis in a better world than we were living before.
You know, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I think from my perspective, there is a great appreciation of my life. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I said I wanted to be a journalist, admittedly a sports journalist, not a space journalist. But I'm kind of living the dream, and I get to do amazing things, really. And you know, I get to travel, meet incredible people, write amazing stories about amazing people. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. And you know, as I said, I can really empathize with those words. And you know, you know, we all hope come out of this in better shape, both both personally and professionally, and we have a greater appreciation of others for sure. Tom, that was absolutely fascinating. Really enjoyed talking to you. I also know where to come the next time I need a new laptop bag, so that's a good bit of information.
Great.
So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you and your family, obviously, safe health, and I wish you all the best with. I always know you're always going to be up to something very ambitious and creative. So I wish you all the best with all the projects that you're working on. Great to spend time with you as always, and look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thank you, Mark. This was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you invited me. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and your family. And I wish you a great end of the week.
Thank you very much, Tom, and all the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.